Before we begin, let me ask you something quietly uncomfortable. Have you ever noticed how your mind can keep you awake at night, replaying conversations that already ended, imagining futures that haven't arrived, dissecting moments that no longer exist? If that question already landed somewhere deep inside you, stay with me. And if this kind of psychological depth speaks to you, gently tap like and subscribe. Not for me, but for the version of you that's trying to understand themselves more clearly. Because overthinking isn't just a bad habit, it's a survival strategy that learned to stay too long. You don't overthink because you're weak. You overthink because somewhere along the way, your mind learned that constant vigilance felt safer than uncertainty. And once you see that, everything changes. Most people think overthinking is simply thinking too much, but psychology tells a deeper story. Overthinking is what happens when the nervous system doesn't feel settled. It's what happens when your brain starts scanning for threats that aren't always visible. It's the mind trying to predict pain before it arrives, trying to control outcomes that were never fully in your hands. You don't overthink because you enjoy it. You overthink because your system learned that awareness equals protection. Think about it. Somewhere in your past, being alert mattered. Maybe emotions were unpredictable. Maybe people were inconsistent. Maybe you learned early that mistakes came with consequences. Maybe love felt conditional. Maybe silence felt dangerous. Maybe being prepared felt like the only way to stay safe. So your mind adapted. It learned to rehearse conversations before having them. It learned to replay moments after they passed. It learned to imagine worst-case scenarios just in case. And slowly, without realizing it, you became someone who lives more in thought than in presence. Overthinking is rarely about the situation in front of you. It's about what that situation reminds your nervous system of. That's why two people can experience the same event and react completely differently. One feels mildly stressed, the other spirals for days. One moves on, the other can't let go. Because overthinking isn't logical, it's emotional memory wearing the mask of analysis. Your brain is not trying to torture you, it's trying to protect you using outdated information. Modern psychology shows us that overthinking is closely tied to anxiety, unresolved emotional experiences, and hypervigilance. When your nervous system doesn't feel safe, your mind becomes a detective. It searches for meaning, it analyzes tone, it studies body language, it revisits past choices, it imagines future outcomes. Not because you're broken, but because your system is trying to regain control. Control feels like safety when safety was once uncertain. And here's the part most people don't realize. Overthinking isn't happening in your thoughts, it's happening in your body first. Long before your mind starts racing, your nervous system has already decided that something feels off. Your shoulders tighten, your breathing becomes shallow, your jaw clenches, your stomach tightens. Then your thoughts arrive to explain the sensation. You think first, but you feel first. Overthinking is the mind's attempt to make sense of an activated body. That's why telling yourself to just stop thinking never works. You can't reason your way out of a nervous system response. You have to regulate it. But let's go deeper. Overthinking often develops in people who learned early that their emotions weren't fully welcome. When you grow up in environments where feelings are dismissed, minimized, or misunderstood, you learn to intellectualize your experience. You analyze instead of feel. You think instead of process. Your mind becomes the place where everything lives. Sadness becomes stories, fear becomes scenarios, uncertainty becomes planning, and slowly your inner world turns into a constant conversation you can't escape. You become the observer of your own life instead of the participant. Have you ever noticed how overthinking usually shows up when you're alone, at night, in quiet rooms, in moments without distraction? That's not random. Silence removes external stimulation, so your internal world gets louder. Your mind fills the space, and because your brain evolved to prioritize threats over peace, it doesn't drift toward calm reflections, it drifts toward problems.
This is called negativity bias. Your brain gives more weight to potential danger than to present safety. It's ancient biology. Thousands of years ago, that instinct kept humans alive. Today, it keeps you mentally trapped. So your mind loops. What if I said the wrong thing? Why did they act that way? What does this mean about me? What if I fail? What if I lose them? What if I never figure this out? Overthinking is your nervous system asking for reassurance in a world that doesn't provide guarantees, and society quietly reinforces it. We live in a culture that rewards productivity, perfection, and performance. You're constantly comparing yourself to curated versions of other people's lives. You're absorbing more information than any generation before you. Your mind never gets to rest, and rest is where clarity lives. Another layer most people don't see is identity. Overthinkers are often deeply conscientious. They care, they reflect, they try to understand themselves and others. They don't move through life casually. They feel things deeply, even when they pretend they don't. But that sensitivity, when unsupported, turns inward. You become your own harshest observer. You replay conversations searching for mistakes. You analyze your tone. You wonder if you were too much or not enough. And slowly, your sense of self becomes fragile. Because when you live inside your thoughts, you start to confuse thoughts with truth. But thoughts are not facts. They're interpretations shaped by emotion, memory, and belief. Yet, over time, you start believing everything your mind produces. And that's where suffering grows. Overthinking also thrives on uncertainty. Your brain hates open loops. It wants closure. It wants answers. It wants resolution. But life rarely offers clean conclusions, so your mind keeps spinning, hoping that one more round of thinking will finally bring peace. It won't, because peace doesn't come from analysis. It comes from acceptance. But acceptance feels dangerous when you've learned that vigilance keeps you safe. So you stay alert. You stay prepared. You stay mentally busy, even when your body is exhausted. This is why overthinking is often connected to burnout. Your system never fully powers down. You're always processing, always evaluating, always anticipating, and that constant internal labor wears you down. Here's something quietly profound. Overthinking is often a form of emotional avoidance. Instead of feeling sadness, you analyze it. Instead of sitting with grief, you dissect it. Instead of allowing uncertainty, you try to outthink it. Your mind keeps you busy so you don't have to feel vulnerable. But vulnerability is where healing lives. The moment you stop fighting your inner experience is the moment it starts changing. And that brings us to transformation. You don't heal overthinking by forcing positive thoughts. You heal it by teaching your nervous system that it's safe to be present. That safety comes from small practices, slowing your breath, grounding your body, letting emotions pass without judgment, noticing when you're spiraling, and gently returning to the moment. It also comes from understanding your patterns. Ask yourself, not with criticism, but with curiosity, when do my thoughts spiral the most? What situations activate me? What am I actually afraid of losing? Because behind every overthinking loop is a deeper emotional question. Am I safe? Am I enough? Will I be abandoned? Will I fail? These are not cognitive problems. They're attachment wounds. They're survival fears. They're echoes of earlier experiences that taught your system to stay alert. And once you see that, you stop fighting your mind. You start listening to it. Overthinking doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means something inside you is asking for care. It means your system learned to survive by thinking, and now it needs to learn to live by feeling. There's a quiet strength in noticing when your mind drifts and bringing it back, in letting thoughts pass without chasing them, in choosing presence over prediction, in trusting that you don't have to solve everything right now. Rich inner peace doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from learning how to sit with the questions. And here's the realization most people never reach. Overthinking doesn't need to be eliminated. You need to change your relationship with it. You don't need to silence your mind. You need to ground your body. You don't need perfect clarity. You need self-compassion. Because beneath all the analysis, beneath all the mental loops, there's a part of you that just wants to feel safe. And that part doesn't respond to logic. It responds to gentleness. So take a breath. Notice where you are. Feel your body in this moment. Your thoughts will come and go. They always do. But you don't have to follow every one of them. You are not your spirals. You are the awareness watching them. And maybe that's the quiet truth hidden beneath overthinking. Your mind learned to protect you. Now it's time to teach it how to rest. Not through force, not through pressure, but through presence. One moment at a time. And that's where real peace begins. Not when the thoughts disappear,